7 o'clock, we call this the meeting of.
No, you don't call all
Okay.
extrapolation. I
I'll
can call
let
this
you do
meeting
that.
order. Anybody can call this meeting order. All right, we'll come to order. It's now after 7 o'clock. We have a roll call and pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay. First up, comments from citizens. James, you're the only citizen here that.
I'm not actually a citizen of Centralia, sir, but since you asked, when are you gonna pave my road?
We're gonna get out there one of these years.
Thank you, sir.
It's on the list.
One of these decades.
Hang on a second, he's on the list, we didn't hear him.
All right. Next up, electric department. We have an activity report in our packet.
It's a little bit different format this time.
Yeah.
Are there any comments or questions on the report?
To find out what caused the phases to fall together at Switzerland and Stone.
No, did not find out. My suspicion is birds.
I'm sure we'll talk
I
about
bet
that.
that's not a problem in that side of town.
Right? There was no
Like
wind,
somebody who lives over on that side.
no rain, no weather that night at all.
Okay.
You can't help yourself, can you?
No, I had to bring it up.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Next up, wholesale distribution service agreement with Ameren, Missouri.
We're just gonna lead off with bad news this time. I had a visit from the district superintendent of Ameren, Missouri, and also our friendly customer service rep who pays us the annual visit and gives out free pens. They brought along a proposed new wholesale distribution service agreement, which is part of many charges we pay to get power from there to here. We pay at least 3 and sometimes 4.
You did your homework.
This is one of those things. And this, just remember, this is only transmission. This has nothing to do with buying this energy. There's generators collectively that belong to Ameren and Ameren Energy Marketing, and they sell us power. From the generators, they go into the grid, and we pay MISO for transmitting on the general grid. And there are some financial tax assets that we get that offset that we got way back when we ceased to be an Ameren UE customer. The grid only goes down to 63 kV. Anything beyond that is considered a company's distribution system, what we would consider transmission. That's run in Missouri by Ameren, Missouri. And that charge is based on month-by-month cost to run that system, prorated out based on how much we take versus is on the whole Ameren system. Okay. Then it comes down to what we consider distribution, which is 34.5, and that's basically the lines from the substations out north of town and west of town in to our substations. That's been for a long time a flat rate, but it was originally calculated as a percentage. As related to me by Kelly and her boss, Mr. Schmidt, they haven't recalculated that since 1992. That was the time when we ceased to be a captive customer of Ameren UE. In fact, even then they were just UE. when we became a customer that had some ability to go to other suppliers, there was a master contract. We bought power and we paid several other charges, and one of those was calculated back at that time, and the packet included this particular agreement. Since then, we bought from Energy Marketing through 2 separate contracts, and each time this was renewed. For some reason, I suspect it may be because of oversight by FERC and the Public Service Commission, but I'm not positive. They went through and had to re-examine all their charges. We're not the only one that has this. Almost all the municipals have this now. Because nobody manages to get by generating 100% of their energy requirements. Looking just at the 34.5 lines that serve the city of Centralia, the costs have gone up. Firstly, because they did upgrades to that system that enabled us to add the Wilson Street subdivision. And I also think that it goes far enough back to not... Substation, yes. I think the Burkhardt substation may be recent enough that some of that was all incorporated. Additionally, that particular line doesn't serve a lot else other than us and Chance Company. Chance Company's load has been fairly stable. Our load since 1992 has gone up like oh heck of a lot. Upshot, they need to update this. I'm not sure they have a choice. I'm certain that we don't have a choice. And the charge will go to find it here.
It's number 2.
Yeah, I go to about 13,000 or something. Where it has
$13,998 per month.
Yeah, somewhere I have a copy of how they calculated that, which makes sense, although I don't have their inventory and costs for various pieces of equipment. That is an increase. And there's an increase of basically $66,500 a year.
So about doubles.
Not quite, but close.
A third?
It's 5,000 and something per month, so it gives
More. Yeah.
more. Yes.
So instead of 9,000, it goes to 14,000.
It's more like 8 something. We're dealing with fractions, but yeah, it still goes up by 5,500
Yeah,
bucks or whatever it is.
about $2.
And I don't have that right here, but the solid number I know is $66,482.52, and that's a flat fee paid monthly.
Okay.
We need to pass an ordinance in the near future that authorizes the mayor to sign a new agreement, because the upshot is if we don't have an agreement, we don't have any power.
Well, that sends us back to the dark ages.
And they're not really holding stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
they have provided the calculations, and it makes perfectly good sense, and I guess we could thank our lucky stars they didn't do this beforehand, but it's still expensive.
Okay.
And
Is that going to equate into a rate increase?
for that and another reason I'll mention in a second, yes, it will likely result in a rate increase. I want to hold on to the summer months.
When would this
When's it
new
going?
contract take effect?
As soon as we pass.
Okay.
And they didn't give me a hard deadline, they just indicated they would like it sooner rather than later. So if we wait until September, then it wouldn't take effect until the October usage, which would be the November bill.
We wait till December?
I wouldn't.
After Christmas?
They were nice and polite, but I mean, you keep your gun in your holster and jacket over the holster. This should be on the agenda for this At this,
When would the rate increase go into effect for our consumers?
well,
That would
fun's
be-
paying as soon as it takes effect, but
Yeah,
I'm-
quick after we pass the ordinance.
Well, we'll have to pass the rate increase.
Right.
I would propose that we institute it effective January 1, just like we did the last rate increase. Gives people time to prepare. It actually, that won't show up until their February bills. Now,
Okay.
that increase is going to be, it's not gonna be nearly like last time, and we have not had our change in our rates. And it will, by then, be 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's somewhat fair,
Okay.
but it's gonna be somewhere between 4% and 8%. And the numbers are fuzzy enough right now. Let me tell you what, we gotta absorb that 66,000. We're also coming off of many years of operating with expenses greater than what we were taking in, knowing that the first of this year, the rates went down and we started having a higher margin. However, if you've noticed the weather,
Yes.
mild winter, relatively speaking, very mild summer until August.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the moment, we're $117,000 less than targeted revenue. Now, I suspect that the August bills will be closer to seasonal averages, and we will keep hemorrhaging money, but it's not likely to help us recoup that. And the best you can do when you make these predictions is go back and average out historic trends.
Right.
And when you have a couple of months where you have $50,000 or $75,000 less than revenue for a month,
Yeah.
it comes back to haunt you. Sometimes we may have a month that's a little bit above that, but I don't see it being that much above it. So I'm looking at trying to recommend a rate come January where it will be good for 2 or 3 years at least, even with the Prairie State. And, who knows, we might have a year where we play catch up and get lots of money, but I can't keep the budget that way.
Right.
And I know I have to budget for the 66,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be following this, and I will make recommendations to you in time to act on an ordinance in December with a closer calculation on what it takes to get the budget balanced, and I'll try and keep it as low as possible. I would like to point out that even if it was 8%, we'd be looking at a rate somewhere around 9.7 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, that's on the low side of the state averages.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
what would that equate to about a, $100 a month electric bill? What increase would that be?
$8.
$8.
If you rate
$8,
for
yeah.
power.
Yeah.
That's not your total city bill,
No,
that's just the
no.
power bill.
Right.
There shouldn't be any for a water rate increase coming up. The sewer is looking okay, and I think we've dealt with trash, but I had hoped that we'd be able to go another 3 years into the secondary Ameren Energy Marketing contract and know going forward what a replacement contract at that time would cost beyond my life shelf span. Don't know yet. Just things we don't have control over. Mother Nature and regulatory bodies above us.
So this is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that's pushing this down, or?
They didn't.
Okay.
They didn't give me a specific excuse. They
Okay.
just said this is it.
Okay, it was over.
That's a supposition on my part. I mean,
Okay.
remember, Ameren's been requesting some fairly major rate increases of its retail customers,
Right.
and Public Council has gone to the Public Service Commission and opposed those rate increases, and Ameren has had to justify all of their expenses. And when some good forensic accountant goes through and says, this number hasn't changed in decades.
Yeah.
You ought to
Reassess that, yeah.
you can see what the outcome's going to be. So,
Okay.
that's bad news, number one.
That's all we're allowing for today.
No, Mark's next.
What's the second bad news?
Second bad news is that we've found some meters that were programmed incorrectly from our supplier. And so we've been charging a few customers more than we should have been.
Gotta be.
They're all commercial customers with multiplier meters. No residential customers.
Okay, all right. So are we looking at refunds?
Yeah, we're looking at refunds, and one of them is over $17,000 worth. It went on since 2008. This
Didn't we
meter
have a
was,
similar situation with Cargill last year?
Yeah,
I
that
think it
was,
was a glitch in the computer system.
yeah, this isn't a glitch, it's a difference between what they said it was programmed to read out as a multiplier and what it actually read out as a multiplier. Our computer system did fine, we read it and backed it out.
the one
We
we
used
sold
the wrong
on,
multiplier.
there's been a few times that's happened over the years, but it's always been when a meter has failed, a new meter was put in, and so a customer, immediately knew when they got their next bill, something was up, or even the city's system flagged it. The one that was the worst was one that it was from day one of the business opening, the meter was wrong.
And
They had no data, we didn't have, no one had any previous data to go on to say, our bill just went up, what's
How did you
up?
find the error?
I'm pardon?
How did you find the error?
We had one meter, the radio part of it died, and so we had to go read it manually. And reading it manually and doing the math to what should have been on the radio to compare it to last month's there was no math we could do to make it understandable.
Sure.
It just was not correct. And so when we found that one, we went and checked every single meter with a multiplier in town and found 2 more.
I'm glad it was like 2.
So, yeah, 3 total.
Okay.
So does this fall back on the company that did the meters?
I guess I really don't know, but I don't know how you could.
I don't think
You
there's
can do
that kind
that.
of warranty.
I don't think-
A typical warranty would be for the equipment, it would not be for the outcomes.
And if they programmed it wrong,
Yeah.
they should have an insurance policy that would cover that.
Well, on the other hand, we took in more money than what we should have.
But we wouldn't have if they wouldn't have
Which we
programmed
wouldn't
them.
have if they had the program.
So-
So you're after interest, or what would you be after them? Because we're refunding what we should have collected.
We're refunding what we should have collected.
Okay, so they ought to refund what we're paying out.
Exactly.
Instead of us paying it, the company ought to have to pay.
I don't
No, I understand so.
understand that at all.
Okay,
Where nobody's out with money, we took in more by mistake.
but
So
it was
we shouldn't have had to
it
begin
was
with.
not the city of Centralia's error in
No, sure.
calculating that. It was the company providing the
That's true.
equipment.
But we can't profit from that.
Yeah.
But we can't profit from that.
What we're saying is that company should actually be paying the refund back to those citizens instead of the refund
but then
money
we-
coming
that
out of
would be
our
our-
But
budget.
then we just
Okay.
profited, then we would be
I got
profiting from it.
I got you.
We profited from the error in this scenario.
And my guess is that you won't find a contract written that way. I would be willing to bet that there's nobody that would write a contract that took themselves
No.
liable for those.
And I would agree if for some reason we had to also pay the interest on that money, then we were actually out their negligence.
Exactly.
But it's a one-to-one swap back to them. So I mean, if we're not paying interest, and if the other company paid it, that would be just money in the bank for us. I mean, we would profit on their error.
And yes, we used it and we budgeted for it, but
Yeah, I see where you're coming from now.
It would have been nice if we discovered it earlier, or they discovered it earlier, like Mark said, they had no track history to compare against. And this works out to about $400 a month. Well, in a big business, I'm sure.
$400 is.
That's, yeah, we got lots of businesses that pay $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just got lost in the shuffle. Fortunately, we found one. Mark goes back and checks all the others.
Now, is there a case that they can make to have interest on the money?
They haven't. We asked them, would they like to take it as a credit or have a lump sum? You know,
Yeah, so far they just wanted,
They just wanted the
just
money.
wanted a refund.
Yeah.
One of them wanted a lump sum, and the other one, it wasn't a lot, so they just wanted a credit, and it would last maybe a couple months, and then it would probably be caught up. A 2 to 3 month period would be, because that was a short period one.
Yeah. And 17,000,
Yeah, electric.
or the half of that for 4 years at point something percent. They're not gonna argue about it.
My only point was, the only thing that I could see that you could demand is that they're gonna have an interest on it or something.
They have it.
That's fine.
And my guess is you'd have a hard time with that. There's probably not enough money to sue for it.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, the business involved is
Yeah.
low key.
Yeah.
Okay. Not an issue. But you will see it on the bills over $12.50 at some point.
Okay.
A check. Now you know what it's gonna be for.
Understood.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Well, that was a good guess.
Herndon and Show Me Shoreline.
Herndon and,
Show Me
Hardwell,
Shoreline.
Show Me
Mr.
Shoreline.
Fink's property out there,
and what about third?
And the first one was Centralia, that's the one that,
next door.
yeah, their meter, the radio failed, and that's what
I'm
we.
sure they really don't appreciate publicity.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's next up. So I guess we have, this SD Myers, does that have, what's that?
Yeah, I don't know if you wanna go to the easement across the site. We kind of
Okay, is that the,
back up to that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highway 22, Hickman, the old Dairy Queen, Cook's Auto, cross property there. Back when Cook's was established, we got from the people that owned all that farmland, take up about 3 blocks there, we got an easement across back from them rather than going to Mr. Sweeney. We got it all the way across in case there was somebody else. Well, Mark's designed how he needs to serve lacrosse, and we're going to request a 10-foot easement between the property line and their new business. And it's constructed. And I'm working on the dedication of that easement. Here, keeps correcting my typos, and I keep making typos, so it's going a little slow. When we do that, we're going to get rid of that.
okay.
That will take an ordinance. Dr. Merritt, being an easement rather than a street, it doesn't take a recommendation of planning and zoning commission. We can do it just by doing it. We'll keep this part and just enough off the lacrosse to attach. But, so we'll still have something to serve back here if we ever have to, but we won't have an easement going through the middle of their building.
That's probably a good thing. That's probably a good thing.
That's probably a good thing. We don't need utility easements underneath buildings if we can avoid it. So, likely at the next agenda, regular meeting, we will have an ordinance prepared to vacate the east 197 and a fraction foot of that easement.
Right.
And you don't have to take any action in order to accept the replacement easement.
Okay. Next up, substation testing. I assume that's the SD Myers?
Yes, that's the S.P. Meyer quote there, and this is something that we do, we have done every year for many, many years. And They simply just draw oil samples off both the transformers and both of the, what's called the LTC, which is just basically a load tap changer. It's mounted on the side of the transformer, and basically it adjusts your voltage up and down. As load changes, voltage drops, it will adjust it back up. And there's oil in these things, and especially in the LTC, as parts in there move, arcing happens, you need to know if there's maybe exceptional amount of arcage, so on and so forth. Gases can build up in there. Same way in the transformer, oil testing can give you indications of possibly the insulation breaking down early inside your transformer, so on and so forth. And basically now with 2 transformers and the 2 LTCs,
Whoops.
wow.
That's a lot.
You bring the donuts next week.
That's something. And,
Let's get out of here to the construction site.
and getting the maintenance reports, the price, it just has gone up incrementally each year, and this year it pushed over $12.50. So I had to bring it to you guys to get approval. I mean, we've always used SD Myers, you know, all the prices are very comparable, and the reports are always the same each year, so understanding the data from one year to the next, and the insurance company that insures our equipment very much likes to see it every year.
Almost demands it.
Yeah, they check these reports every single year without question.
Will this require
Yeah,
a
you need a
ordinance?
Yes, well, it's under $12.50, and since it's sort of purchase agreement, I would prefer you pass by motion.
Okay.
By motion.
By motion or by ordinance?
By motion.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Do they do that when it's functional?
Yeah, when it's energized, yeah.
Which brings up something, well, I can.
The reason this doesn't take an ordinance is it's not multi-year.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, is there any other under electric?
I hope not.
Thank you for.
Okay, next is Public Works. We have an activity report in our packet. Does anybody have any questions? I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Down about a third of the way down, clean up concrete and saw cut sidewalk at 414 Allen Street that the contractor didn't do. I assume the contractor was working for a landowner?
Yeah, there's on the sidewalk program, they kind of poured it and they just kind of didn't finish the job. Didn't saw it or anything, so we went and saw cut it, and then we just picked up the excess concrete that was dumped on the ground.
Should we charge the landowner for what his contractor didn't do?
It was under the sidewalk program, so I mean, we were already tearing the sidewalk out and making the concrete. So we just kind of cleaned it up and finished it.
Contractor basically,
The
they poured the sidewalk and left.
Yeah, and it's not a contractor, we want to do another sidewalk in town.
Quality job,
Exactly.
less than quality.
Okay. That was my question, so.
Yeah. Maybe we just went over and saw cut it, it was only about 70, 80 foot sidewalks, I mean, it wasn't an all-day job, it was just over there for an hour and a half or so, cleaning up and everything.
Okay. As long as we keep track of those things.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments on the activity report?
Will we get behind on the trash this week with the holiday?
Yeah, we'll be caught back up by tomorrow,
Okay.
we're just a little bit behind.
All right.
We using that other truck?
We were just short-handed today, had somebody else, but yeah, we've had to use the old one, I mean, we got it back and we've used it, seems to be working as good as it always did.
Good.
So,
Sounds good.
Any problems at all with the new truck?
not yet.
Good.
Not on wood, but we had both of the trucks out today, we just, like I said, we're just a little short-handed, just
Yeah.
didn't quite get it all caught up, so.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Next up, excavation permits. We have a proposed bill in our packet.
Needs a lot of, this is basically a draft and needs a lot of paperwork. setup and make our extensive discussion, but there's something out here. Basically, what's in the current code is stuff contained in the first two paragraphs, first two sections. Everything else draws on Colombia and Mexico and Kirksville. And let me give you a little bit of history. There was a big push back, something like 15 years ago, I guess. 98. A lot of cities were having a great deal of difficulty with communication companies coming in, trenching up their streets and not doing a good job of patching. Tended to be larger cities. There was an ML suggested ordinance for dealing with this sort of thing. And it was fairly specific and fairly complex. It also required permits. And as I recall, most of the examples I had from back then go on for 13 or 14 pages. And almost require you to get plans from the cable TV or telephone company and pass them to an engineer who knows what he's doing to review them. In each case, it's a very onerous sort of procedure. And given that my instructions were, let's figure out how to do filling of excavations in a civilized manner without requiring flowable fill, I didn't think that was needed. And there are reasons why we wouldn't be able to implement it too well anyway. Number one is the governor signed the law this session that says that basically cable TV companies and the like can use our poles without our permission.
However, it has been appealed.
It has
State.
indeed. It has been indeed. So
Which doesn't mean that anything different will happen, it just, we don't know yet.
the trend is at the state and the federal level to do everything they possibly can to roll over for AT&T and the Charters of the world
Yes.
in the interest of making communication easier. And other things. Those people have lots of money to spend on lobbyists. Whole bunches of money. So we'd be swimming upstream to fight it too much.
Right.
So going with the 14-page ordinance didn't make any sense. This is a much smaller version, effectively 3 pages. Sets up a permit requirement for anybody other than the city or the state that's digging in our right-of-ways. It sets up some standards. As currently written, requires that permit to be in writing, have a $20 fee, although that is subject to a lot of up and down. Some of the St. Louis cities charge $100, and they have a lot of administrative overhead to take care of. It sets standards for what kind of backfill there should be. It will require inspection before things are closed in. The specs, there is no consistency between cities on what the backfill material is supposed to be. Various ways to describe aggregate. None of the cities I copied ordinances from are using global fill anymore. There is a majority of them that require tamping in 6-inch lifts. And if we're going to require private contractors, plumbers, phone companies to do that kind of backfilling, we're going to have to follow our own standards and be doing it ourselves. So that will be a burden on our guys. But if we're not using global fill, we're going to need to try to make sure that subsidence is minimized for our own trenches as well as anybody else's.
besides the taxes, here, there was a sketch, which is the standard sketch that Mexico gives its people for this.
It looks pretty much like Columbia's too, I believe.
Yeah. As good as buying in Columbia's ordinances online, they don't have a sketch. But it looks very akin. Things you can notice is that they do a bench. If you fill the trench and then you bench out 12 more inches on either side for the patch, whether it be concrete or asphalt. Things to think about, and review this, and we'll discuss it at a future meeting, and after James gets in the yard, we'll get some feedback from the local plumbers, I'm sure. We have, in most cases, done the street patching. That can result in delays, because we do them in batches with the street crew, and we don't charge anybody. Because most of what's been done is by our crews anyway. And the few that have usually been done by plumbers are by plumbers that don't really have the equipment to do any sort of patching on a city street. In any case, they have no expertise on it. I'm not making a recommendation one way or another. I would suggest that we need to keep on doing the patches unless it's a big project by a contractor like a phone company or a cable TV company doing a long stretch. The question would be whether we should charge them for that or just keep with the existing practice. And if it's a small patch to get to a sewer tank that's plugged, we go back and do the asphalt final lift. We wouldn't be doing the backfill for them, but putting the asphalt back on the street would be better off when done by Phil than done by a plumber.
Or we maintain more control of it that way.
Certainly. You know, if you're talking about a patch the size of that whiteboard there, it may or may not be worth the time to develop a cost estimate and bill them and get it back. And frankly, they'll just pass it along to the customer anyway.
Yes.
But if it's a big project done by a major corporation, they should be required to do it. The other thing that most of the cities are requiring, besides the fee, they require some sort of deposit or bond to guarantee that there won't be subsidence for a year.
Okay.
And Mexico keeps a spreadsheet to track when each patch is coming up for a one-year inspection, at which time they can relinquish the deposit. If it's somebody that's just doing it infrequently, the deposit is usually cash. If it's somebody that does it a lot, which can happen in Mexico a lot more than here, then they'll accept a performance bond of some sort, but then they're usually dealing with contractors that have the ability to get a performance bond.
Right.
In Mexico, their bond is 100. I've seen cities with bonds as high as 300 for just a cut out in the middle of the street for a sewer tap. So that's something else to give consideration to. This is going quite a bit beyond just what material you put in the trench to backfill it, but he said, let's have some standards. The only way you have standards is you have inspections, and the only way you know that you need to inspect is if you require a permit.
Yeah, and we ought to recover the cost of what that is.
So,
I do have one question, Lynn. Does this cover like replacement of sidewalks and stuff?
anything, yeah, it's in there. You
I
didn't
didn't
read
read
anything.
it. I read it, but I was flipping back. I couldn't remember sidewalks, so that's why I wanted to ask.
Well, basic requirement, among other things, is if you dig in the street, you put the street back with the same materials on top, concrete or asphalt, same thickness and all that. the sidewalk, you put the sidewalk back.
Well, I know there's supposed to, but majority of the time that doesn't happen.
If you're going under a parkway or city property that's not paved in any way, then you're allowed to go back with backfill as dirt that was originally out of that trench.
Okay.
But it still would be required to compact it.
Does Columbia have more than one standard? Can you put in tamp to the fill as well as put in clean rock, or is it just clean rock?
I think it's just clean rock, that's all we ever use.
Well, I mean, that's all
Just
most
clean.
people have ever used.
And I think they do that, so you don't have to, so it saves this contractor a little bit of money, where he doesn't have to buy a separate load, because they're gonna backfill their pipe with clean rock,
Right.
and then he won't have to buy another load to put in, you know, that 1 inch with
I
fine.
mean, I certainly have no problem with allowing them to tamp it as long as it's put in properly. But I do believe that most people are gonna use the clean rock because it's quick, it's fast, and it works.
Yeah.
Well, if they buy a load, like Lynn said, they're gonna buy a load of clean to backfill and get their pipe in, then they're gonna have, you know, they're already gonna have a load of rock.
They are gonna have some there, yes.
Yeah. And they're just gonna wait till you leave, and they're gonna dump 1 inch clean in there and tell you, you know.
Okay, you've done.
That's it.
So you might as well just say 1 inch clean and
Right,
call it good.
because you really get very little settlement out of clean rock. The bad aspect of clean rock is that it holds water.
Yeah,
And you
and,
cut that in the future, you better have pump ready.
well, when it's
One place
wet,
for it to go.
when it's wet and you compact it, it's just gonna turn to mush.
Yeah,
So,
using it, yeah,
yeah,
that's what we quit
The
using. it.
paragraph that's under backfilling on the first page, under paved streets, that is what Columbia's ordinance says.
Okay.
Now, like I said, every city seems to have a different formula on what they're gonna allow.
Right.
There's no consistency. And so, that can be changed.
Well,
I'd ask
I
you to advise us on that, and Phil can do more research.
I'm familiar with Columbia's, and I mean, I've been around Columbia's ordinance and what they do for 30 years, and it works.
yeah.
Brandon's familiar with it.
I mean, we don't put rebar in.
No,
We pin it. If it's concrete, we pin it. We don't put rebar in.
That's fine.
We put 2-foot pins on 2-foot centers, all the way around.
and if it's asphalt, you put the concrete in, you leave.
Leave it 2
an inch
inches
and a half
thick,
or
and
2
then the
inches.
city comes in and
Yeah.
puts in the asphalt.
And do they charge you for the asphalt?
I don't know if they charge us or not. I'm sure they
You,
do.
you might ask your bosses.
I'll ask them. But I'm sure
Because it's not
they
clear from their ordinance.
Because I'm sure they do.
You know, and I don't have any objection to on small patches, we might have to write something in the ordinance as to what's, as a size limit. Whether the city does it, does the repair or whatever and charges, or doesn't charge for small patches. But if somebody's gonna go down a block and put a new line in, then I think that maybe they ought to be responsible for the cost of the asphalt and the installation. I mean, at some point, you gotta draw a line.
A couple of cities, including Mexico, take the tack that if it's one project, for instance, it's cable TV, string, wire with directional boring, and they have a couple potholes and they bring it up and put it back down.
Right.
One permit fee.
Okay,
The deposit may be more, but
right.
one permit. I don't see any problem with
No,
that.
I don't either.
Anything you can bring in on one set of plans as a project should be one permit.
But the fee should be adjusted appropriately.
Yeah, you could have one for one. You can have a two-tier rate or something like that. That's a political decision. This is never gonna be a moneymaker.
No,
It's gonna be a money expense, because I'll guarantee you that we're gonna get call-outs on weekends and evenings to go look at their hole in the ground so they can cover it up and be gone about their business. That'll be an overtime expense for an employee to come out and inspect. And it will take longer for Phil or the water guys to do the compacting and get the trench properly set.
Well, just don't have it on weekends. don't make it work, I mean,
That doesn't work here.
it costs extra if you open if you open the street up on weekends, it costs you extra.
We'll talk about another implication of the same thing in a second. But I don't see how we can be a user-friendly city and not do inspections and let people do. Contractors, I can see being a little hardcore, but so much of the work is done by private homeowners. You can do your own plumbing. You
And
can do your own
sometimes,
electric.
I
if
understand
you've
that,
got a sewer stoppage in the middle of, over a weekend, you can need to get it fixed regardless.
And preferably, you don't need a hole open in the street, even if you got barricades and lights, which a lot of plumbers don't, except the ones that have kind of vanished from the city shop over the years. I lose those occasionally. Something to consider.
Okay.
Fee, and whether it might be bifurcated, required deposit or not. Just do the patches at least up to a certain size or not. Or establish a set fee rather than trying to calculate so many yards and all that. Just if we have to do the patching on anything, it's X number of dollars and we'll calculate it once and have done with it. People can, that way it's predictable.
Do you want to, look at this?
I would like you to
Come back in
look
a
at
month.
this. Mike's not here to give his opinion about things.
On the asphalt, you just do a minimum 1 ton, whatever it costs us, just a minimum 1 ton, no matter what size it is, you got at least a minimum of.
Well, and that's true, and anything over that, then
Then you're gonna pay to whatever.
you pay for whatever it is.
And that's gonna be, what, delivered 1 ton or?
We're picking up, it's like low 60s right now.
yeah, but how many holes, I mean, sewer taps are usually take a ton of asphalt.
Very few.
Very few. I mean, there are some, somebody just had to get into the edge of the road, just a small spot, there are some small ones.
I don't think we ought to charge somebody,
Yeah.
charge them a ton of asphalt if it's not gonna take a ton of asphalt.
Well, on the other hand, you gotta realize even $60 is not that big a deal as far as in the scheme of what they're being charged by whoever. So, if there's a minimum fee, there's reasons for having minimum fees. We'll lose money elsewhere, but we won't make money off of it. And maybe a ton is more than what we need to charge, maybe half ton, I don't know.
What'd you say a ton of asphalt was?
I think it's running like 62, 63 right now for a ton.
Cold mix or hot mix?
That's hot mix.
You can see that even trying to keep this simple, we end up with a more bureaucratic response.
Right.
And I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that direction.
The other thing to consider is December, January, February, you can't get hot mix.
No, a lot of times, well, yeah, when those just get rock put in them until we get time and then we go back and.
If you got concrete there, you're not gonna put 1.5 inches of concrete, rock in because it won't stay.
No, well, I mean, all this stuff, you can always put cold mix in.
But you could put cold mix, but that means you're gonna end up redoing it.
Some of them, might be on certain streets, might look good enough and might not have to mess with it, other streets you go back and dig them out.
Yeah.
Just kind of depends on, the area and, how good the cold mix was. Some of that cold mix gets pretty good, and some of these side streets would be, just as good as straight is.
Well, I think we ought to think about it. Maybe Landon and I can talk about it.
I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to it, but I mean,
Let us know whether you think we're overreacting. I would say that most of these our size have this sort of thing already.
Well, and I would rather use what Columbia has, because most of our contractors around here also do work in Columbia, they'd be familiar with it.
yeah.
Although, Mexico, they'd probably be familiar with Mexico too, but I mean, but I'd rather go with, Boone County has pretty much the same standards as what Columbia does.
And I think we pour ours thicker than, what do you got here, 9 inches thick? How deep do you pour your concrete?
I didn't see a detail on that.
Yeah.
We pour concrete however thick the original concrete on the street is.
I believe is the way that the spec is read. If you want something different, now's the time to give that consideration.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I mean, asphalt, I mean, are you just gonna pour a 4-inch?
This is 8-inch PCC slab, whatever that means.
Okay,
And it's kind of arrow.
Portland
down the
concrete
slab.
pavement.
Okay.
They are,
So they're all gonna be we're gonna make them all 8 inches,
unless the original street.
yeah, the patch is 8 inches,
unless the original street was thicker.
right.
In Columbia, that's possible, it's out around here.
The only place around here that'd be thicker would be 22, and I'm not even sure 22 is thicker than that.
I think Columbia makes it 8 inches. A minimum, but with 2 inches. So you leave your hole 10 inches.
All right, I think,
This is not an ordinance to be on the next agenda.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about it.
Landon and I can talk about it, we'll talk to Phil and Mike and everybody about it. Because we've got experience with it a little bit, I think that we'll try to get a report back to you next, in a month from now. There's not a big hurry on this, is there?
No,
Okay.
like I say, we do most of the street cuts,
Yeah.
and we're gonna be bound by our own standards more often than anybody else.
Right. And this is a quick setup concrete so that you can get back on it, so I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, we don't want somebody ordering
Yeah, that needs to be,
we don't want anybody ordering regular 5-bag mix and expecting that nobody's gonna be on that for for 7 days.
No.
Okay. Well, is there, let me see, next up is sanitation. Anything on sanitation, we already discussed kind of the trucks. Storm sewer.
We've excavated out all the storm sewer that had to be removed on Switzler, and we've started reinstalling some of what we had put in for Don Brooks.
Okay.
So we've got part of that already started, and we've got excavated around almost all the boxes and stuff up there by Jefferson that have to be cut down, holes drilled in them, so I'm just kinda waiting on Christine to give me some exact numbers, and I haven't heard back from the concrete cutting company yet, so.
It's supposed to be tomorrow, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
And how long will it take Deco to bring the pipe?
We'll probably just drop down there and get a dump truck.
Okay.
So he was checking, he thought he had everything, and he just wanted to give me some numbers before he even hadn't been in his office, so that's why it took so long, so.
So you're looking at cutting tomorrow?
If they call me, and Christine gets all, I sent her an email, and she was checking back with Mark, because she was gonna have him double check some numbers before she gave me some exact stuff, so.
Okay,
And she may send me an email after I left, I saw, maybe something, I'll have something first thing in the morning,
that sounds good.
so.
So we're back on track with anything, or,
And yeah, if we get those cut off, we'll start, I've got some of the concrete pipe, we could already go ahead and start laying probably.
And Cannon indicated they would be back tomorrow too.
Yeah, I haven't, they weren't there today, because I was up there doing a little digging up at by Pratt, so,
Yeah. They'll excavate,
between Stone and Pratt, yeah.
well, and then they'll hop over and they'll excavate on out to Harvard. They'll stay out of his way for
Yeah.
relaying, but they'll keep on excavating.
Right.
And it's supposed to stay dry for the next.
7 days anyway,
Yeah, so they ought to make good progress.
which is unfortunate because we could probably use rain.
Yeah.
Don't be saying that right now.
But at the same token, I'd like to get this thing back to where we were.
But yeah, if we get those cut off and get the pipe in, then the biggest holdup will be I got 5 inlets to build and set, so I mean, that'll take a little bit of time.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other under public works? Hearing none, we'll move on to the water and sewer department. We have an activity report. Anybody have any questions?
The reason Mike's not here tonight is because he's with his family, added vacation days to the holiday. The water crew is, most of their time doing new taps and fixing water main breaks.
And we fix our
Raising the manholes.
Well, I think they've done most of that.
I think
Except
Yeah, I think they got most of those done over there on Switzer.
there was a plate or riser they needed from Herman to finish off. I mean, they had to go down, it was a brick manhole, so they had to go down by a finite quantum amount, and then they needed to put a plate that they could do a riser on to get back up to an interim measure.
Okay. Requirements for master shut-offs.
This is something I've been discussing with Mike, and at some point may require a new policy resolution to follow through. Under the plumbing codes and residential building codes, now, if you build an apartment building, you got the meter, there's a shut-off, a master shut-off for the whole building, and then I believe the plumbing code even goes farther now that you have to have individual unit shut-offs.
Okay.
Didn't always be the case. Several apartments that are in town that don't have those. In one case, they have a handyman who has his day job and doesn't do their repairs until evening, so he's always asking for the water to be shut off, and the only way to do that is come and shut it off at the meter. Our current policy is when that happens, it has to be done by a water employee, because most of the people doing it don't know what they're doing, and they end up with leaks, and then it's our fault, not their fault. Oh, well, my guy couldn't have done that, it was leaking anyway, or leaking before, or, yeah, whatever. And it's hard to pin down, so that's why we have that policy. We're looking at a couple of options. One is just go back in, say, we'll put in a valve on your side of the meter, and you can turn that on and off anytime you want. If you break it, you got it. The other is to have an understanding with specific people that they can do it, but they'll be responsible if they mess up the city meter.
Okay.
And they agree to that in advance. We're looking at both ways. It's a problem that won't be added to, but I'd like to correct the old ones for the existing, we have Colony Oaks and Centralia Apartments and Stonecrest, probably those fourplexes on Columbia Street, all in the same boat. But the only way that can deal with it is to shut off at the meter, and it's just asking a little bit much of the water crews.
Yeah,
Plus we're gonna take
I would
2 hours
agree.
to call on
And
time.
I think either option would probably work.
Yeah, if it's after hours, then they take 2 hours to call it.
Right, but I mean, I think either of the options that Lynn has mentioned would probably work.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
we'll have something in writing. I assume responsibility for all leaks.
Right.
No, argue about it.
Yeah.
We gotta do something. Because we're irritating customers and we're irritating employees that get called out, just so they can spend a minute twisting
Right.
the thing on and do one of these numbers and come back and turn it back on. But at least, if we break it, we know who broke it,
Yeah.
and it's not a big issue.
I wonder how you break it. I've heard them off lots of times.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
I guess I was about to ask for details what Mr. Borman just said. We're talking about when people,
Over tighten it,
the knob that's underground, you turn off the meter.
it's
Yeah.
it's not the only part of it. It's not the only part of it, and I'd let Mike explain,
Okay.
but he's not here.
I think a lot of times it just has to do with how they get the crescent wrench or the channel locks instead of.
Yeah, they don't use the
instead
right
of a good
tool.
meter wrench.
Yeah.
I mean, the city's gonna use a meter wrench.
Right.
If they don't use the right tool.
The plumber's
it's very
gonna
easy to
use a
break.
meter wrench. I think that's where the problem has
Yeah.
come in, is when they get on there just wrong and then.
Right. And I'm sure you can break it, but I've done lots of them.
Yeah, use the right
I've
tool.
done mine several times.
Well, if you've done money, then you probably know how to go about it. A lot of these people,
Don't break, don't break.
you know, you have the customer who doesn't wanna pay for a plumber, wants to do it himself, change out water fitting in the house, and doesn't have any other turn on,
Yeah.
something sensible with a knob and handle.
I mean,
So he goes out and he fiddles with it, and then it doesn't get it back, and
there's a stop both ways. You're supposed to realize when you get to the stop.
Yeah, it's not.
no.
Oh,
No, I'm not, turn it a little bit more.
yeah, when, okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, we may have a policy to put in writing rules on this sex pretty soon, but not this time around.
Sounds good. All right, any other underwater and sewer? Nothing? Any other?
I took some of the maps, the assortment down to Triangle, and based on what I think we're going to need over the next 9 months or so, to be scanned in and made into PDFs.
Right.
The initial charge they quoted me was $1.25 a page,
Okay.
which is a lot less than the $2.50 that you had as the upper limit of the range, so they're willing to work with us. I won't do it all at once, it'll
Right.
maybe 100 pages a week down. It gives me something manageable. I can go back and review, make sure that everything's there, and worry about putting together some sort of new indexing system. And I may have some questions, after I talk to Heather, I may have some questions of Dave about storage media, because this is gonna eat up storage space.
Understood.
Yeah, oh, yes. When you're dealing with thousands of pages of PDF of large maps, I don't think our contract with Planet goes quite that capacity.
Well, we'll either have to increase it or increase our own storage capacity.
I just bought a,
The problem with increasing our own is we have a liability if something happens to it,
Yes.
it's a problem. So we would need a good backup system.
from experience, I just did it. You can buy for $91 and change 1 terabyte of portable hard drive, external.
Yeah.
You would want something a little more, you'd want a RAID array since the drives are there.
Yeah.
And you would want a bunch more than what you would have bought for your home machine.
Yeah.
I don't mean to poo-poo what you just said.
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying like if you're doing network attached storage so that multiple people can hit it on that network.
But even mirrored drives are not that expensive.
Well, no, it's really the array.
Well, you work with it, I don't. I'll give you advice, but as we're going through, they'll go on the main computer, but they can be erased later and they can be stored. Eventually, they will also have to be sent off to somebody to create microfilm from, because that's a state requirement.
Okay.
I have some of them in my home, the network attached storage, that can also have hang portable drives like the one you bought for your machine off of them. So the purpose for those would be to do a backup that you're taking away. And then the main one that stays incorporated into the network is the NAS. But then you make sure the NAS is, it's called Array 1, which is a mirrored array. So that if one drive were to fail, the other one is an exact duplicate of the other one. We can talk about that offline. I'm getting way
Yeah.
over it, but.
Probably much more complicated than the system we're using right now.
It's really, it's not more complicated, because you don't even know it's there.
Yeah, it's gonna look at the drive.
Well, we don't know the system Lana's providing.
Yeah.
It's sort of a 24-hour backup
Right.
Yeah.
of everything. Perfect.
So, but I mean, keeping one off-site would also be, because if there's a fire here, we
Right,
both
right.
up with
Yeah.
the job.
And I would think that everything we got would go on an external hard drive in 1 terabyte capacity. It's a lot of pages.
Oh, believe me, I've digitized most of my files, and I've got a computer that's 4 years old, and I'm up to maybe 15% of my storage capacity on my hard drive.
You got any?
Well, anyway, we'll get rid of a couple of the file cabinets because we have things stored, we won't need hard copies anymore. They're more manageable and something that the guys out in the field will be able to access
Yeah.
easily. And we'll, to some extent, where possible, maybe tie it in with the GIS system.
Some of it will, you'll want to eventually at least.
Building permits eventually will come too.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
All right. As Mayor Rice. Yes, sir.
I got an email from the emergency management director. The sirens are gonna sound tomorrow for their monthly test. Monthly test of outdoor warning sirens on Wednesday. So,
What time?
you know, I was looking for that. It says at noon. Sirens will activate at noon.
Correct.
Thank you very much. That was the last sentence.
That's our normal time for testing anyway.
Yep. In addition to that, I got another email from the governor's office asking if we would like to make a statement as a council for the 253.
I suspect not.
Okay, we'll just leave it
I
as
think
it
that's what we already did.
I think that's what we decided before.
is. Okay. Well, this was after the governor visit last Thursday, so. All right, thank you.
Larry, did you have something?
I did, but I think
Oh,
Cole.
I'm sorry. I didn't see, yeah, just.
Did you have something?
I'll let you have it, it's probably the same thing.
Thank you very much. Let me just address the birds issue. Us as a city government, us as a police department, trying to control these birds is like us trying to change the tide.
Or stop the rainfall.
Or stop the rainfall. I understand completely that it is a problem for those that it affects. I understand that. But I don't know how we fight it, folks. We have this bird cannon that's wonderful, which is to say, it came from another public entity, I've just not taken it back so that I always know where it is. But for all the birds that we can move with our bird bangers and our cannon, we're simply moving the problem to somewhere else. It may help some for those times we use the bird bangers and the cannon. We'll get calls at the police department, folks complaining that we're blasting, fireworks, whatever. All that is to say, one, we can't fight it. We've tried our best, but I can't fight it. The police department can't fight it. We can investigate burglaries and stealing, that's what we do. I don't know what to say to these folks other than it's bigger than me. I understand that as elected officials, all of us, it doesn't matter if we're elected or not, if someone comes to us with a problem, we'd like to be able to help. Sometimes, as in this case, the answer is no.
Chief, I was to say, just for clarity, you're getting calls from requests for you to dissipate all the birds or to
Yes.
thin them
Yes,
down
there's
somehow?
millions of, there's millions.
There's millions of them.
Then
Millions.
what's the expectation? So, I mean,
That we move them with,
We can move in your neighborhood.
and
I mean, there's millions.
there's a concentration, and if there's a concentration near your home, and they are covering your sidewalks and your roof and your gutters and your vehicles, literally destroying your vehicles and your, it's a problem, and it chaps your rear end to no end. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
I get it. It's
bigger than me, and it's bigger than this council.
How long does this bird infestation usually last every year? A couple months? Or
Let
does
me
it
be
go all
clear.
year long?
Let me be clear, Mr. Mayor, in that I am not a bird expert by any stretch of the imagination.
What is the timeframe that
It
the
seems
complaints
to
will come in?
be, in my tenure, it seems to be, depending on weather, shortly before school takes up to about the first good cold snap,
Yeah.
to where they truck southbound. And I'm telling you, when we've tried to move them, the sky is literally just black.
And then they just go to another tree.
And then they just
You go to that tree, then they go to the next tree.
Yes.
It sounds like.
I understand that in a small community, if someone calls us, we try to help. I get, as well we should, regardless if you're elected or not. But I'm telling you, you may get some of these calls as alderpersons. And if you call me, you're gonna get sometimes the answer is no. And this is but one of them.
Well, I mean, I know that other cities have had this problem. I know Mexico had it in their downtown area. They ended up cutting a lot of their trees down.
I mean, that's an option.
Certainly kept the birds from roosting in the trees when
Yeah.
the trees were gone.
Yeah.
But there's no good answer for it. There's too many birds to move around. All you're doing is moving them from place to place.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
I mean, one guy called me and said it was a health hazard.
It is an health
It
hazard.
is.
No doubt about it.
I don't disagree with that at all.
There are,
But if they're on somebody else's
now, I
side, yeah,
think,
I just think they stay there.
I believe that we are blessed or cursed, depending on your word, with someone on our council that knows something about trees, which may mean he knows something about birds. I can't wait for this alderman to weigh in on it.
Well,
We're waiting.
I agree that it's a problem, and you can run them out of one location only to have them show up somewhere else. So you're just pushing your problem on somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the fact of the matter. What I would like to be able to do is to give people who are having troubles more of an answer than just, I can't help you.
I'm with you.
If an individual were to purchase his own little bird buzzer, we wouldn't have a problem with that, would we?
No.
What are those
The
run?
little cannon we used to sort of check out like library book and let whoever's neighborhood was having the most problem.
Well, I just put
borrow.
one up here on Gimpers, and they, for about $150 investment, looks like you can
We have that
fully equip yourself.
bird banger, which is to say we have that bird blaster. It shoots a projectile that looks like an M80 properly used up into the tree, and it blasts them. And they go make a circle, and generally will light back in the same tree. Now, if you do that long enough, it's like reaching your hands in the cookie jar. When your mom slaps your hands enough, pretty soon you'll get the drip knocked out of that. Now, we've been somewhat successful moving them a little bit. That Mr. Chrisman over in
That's
our
not
ward,
even called me, but.
in our ward, that's a problem. He lives just east of what you.
So you live on Pratt Street?
No, he lives on
Stone.
Stone. They're
Stone, right
Stone
to
is
the
which
east of those
storage.
trailers of
Okay.
Mr. Smith's.
Yeah.
And he is a very, very nice man and keeps his home very nice. And that's a problem. I have stood, my operatives have stood on his deck and shot up into those trees. And they gravitate to Mr. Bagley's,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bagley's storage unit. I'd like to be able to help. I know of no ordinance or statute that would prevent private citizens
What about, I mean,
from using these things.
can we contact the conservation, see what they have to say about it?
And if you do, they're gonna say, yes, they're.
Hawks.
Yeah,
Just say call the police.
several times on the numerous years.
Yeah, call the police, they'll call, take care of it.
Cooper Hawks.
I know.
That's how we got the bangers, that's how we got tapes with,
Yeah.
bird warning calls, but Larry says that there's so many birds that they
It just
couldn't hear this.
yeah, the volume just.
Yeah.
Ryan Yeager's mom and the woman that lives to the north of Ryan's mom on, is that?
Southwest. North.
Yeah, whatever street that is.
Southwest would be north of Jager's Mall.
Yes, would just be to the north of Ryan's mom. She has that thing at a pretty high rate. And that only helps her keep them away. But when they all whoosh, and they're just to the east of her, across the street,
Lanny Pattons.
Landy Pattons, it's, now I have insider trading information that someone is out utilizing the bird banger as we speak about it.
I also know
Mention
that,
that, let's not mention him, please, I don't want those calls going.
I also know that, laser pointers, they also work at, moving them to different.
Hawks and Pattons work good too.
I don't wanna take up.
Everybody-
We've done that, we've tried
Yeah, they are.
scarecrows, we've done that, we've tried movable scarecrows. I think we volunteered Catherine's falcons one year, did that do any good?
No, because
No.
ours typically go for bunnies and squirrels. It's the Cooper Hawks and I don't know, we're gonna get a whole bunch of Cooper Hawks and that's what you need.
Are they
'cause
pretty much over just in that
Cooper
area?
Hawks
you know?
are birds.
In
They're
that
from-
area,
They're
that's
from
where they are.
22 to Switzer Street.
In
And
that
Jefferson.
area. See, they're by
Chances along the lines of coming in.
Every morning they're out there on them lines and they're just
Now-
flying.
As a result of our efforts of bird hanging up into the trees,
I just think we need to evacuate
The
that
cannon
section of town.
that I have
Condemn
won't
it and take it over.
hold the candle to the, won't hold the candle to the tree. We've driven some of those away out of those trees and got them on the lines there along Pogue. Between there and MFA, just to the north of the elevator there, we'll see it lined up there. And we moved some of them to the power lines to the north of Highway 22. Yeah, around the sale barn area there.
What's that called?
Cooper Hawk,
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them on the 34-5 line coming in there, we're talking about 34-5.
they're smaller than a red tail.
what we won't do is allow people to go shooting them.
No,
Because
no.
Shot goes up and comes back down and you don't know what's gonna hit, and besides that, picking up dead birds off the ground is as much a sanitary problem.
Yeah.
But it's very satisfying.
And somehow, this will,
FFA trap shooting team needs practice.
somehow that will extrapolate to our problem,
Yeah.
no matter where dead birds fall. I know that's not what folks want to hear, but it's,
The other solution I've researched it online, just like you did there, is people have a material, they spray in the trees, it's tacky, and the birds don't like to light on branches that are tacky, but it's very expensive, and what I've learned is it isn't really all that effective.
Not like
After
a
the
stick
first rain.
tree.
I'm thinking any bird that craps where it sleeps is not affected by sticky.
That's most birds.
Yeah.
I would just ask each of you to, if you get calls, to try to refer them to this website where they might be able to purchase one of these little blasters. And then we'll try to be cognizant of, if they're using them around their home in the city, that they just call the police department, not to ask permission, but just to advise, we're gonna try to scare some birds this evening, so, because we will get those calls. When my operative has used that,
What was the name of that website?
Well, it's just a supplier.
It's a
Just
supplier.
yeah, just
Yeah,
Google
first.
bird banger.
bird banger.
There's a whole bunch of people.
What about a
that sell it.
potato gun? Can you shoot potatoes up in the tree?
That's basically what I believe this cannon is, what I call the cannon. It's basically, if you watched it work, it works off a little propane bottle. It fills up its little chamber with propane. As the hammer goes down, as the chamber fills up, once the chamber fills up, and it releases the striker to strike the pin to ignite it. That, all it is just a little potato gun, someone's
Without potato.
without a potato.
Potato gun'd be a lot more fun.
Hey, you might even get burgers.
Yeah, there you go.
But to those folks that are having those
Birds
problems,
probably
it's
eat potato
it's-
scraps.
it's a problem.
Yeah, those.
So I just ask that if someone calls you, just refer them. I don't know what
Help
to
them
do.
help themselves.
Help them help themselves. I can't. I have fish to fry. I'm not a conservation agent, and the birds, they're certainly, for all the things that are wrong in this town that are my fault. That is not one of them. Nor is it any of, it's just the way it is. It's life in order. I have one other thing.
Okay.
It will take 2 seconds. You might be reminded if you need to go to the store that the MS bike ride is this weekend. And all those bicycles will be,
This coming weekend?
yes.
Saturday.
Saturday morning is the bulk. It's both days, but
And Sunday
Bird
too.
banging
yes.
opportunity. Get potato guns.
I'll make one up this week.
Let it go around and around and around the neighborhood.
Mr. Lee,
Unfortunately, that will be.
I don't think you can. Now, they will be, the route is a little different, but they'll be coming from the north to the south at Jefferson and 22, here at the Big M Steakhouse. So, that'll take on, we'll have to do the traffic thing from 9
Thank you
a.m.
for
till at
doing
least noon.
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay. Is the CHS some kind of stopping point
That's on Sunday.
Sunday?
Saturday, it's the Lutheran Church.
Okay. Both days there is a stopping point though in Centralia.
To the best of my limited knowledge, yes, sir.
I believe James.
I hope I'm correct because I stuck it in the paper.
That's good.
If not, I'm
Print
sure
now.
it's changed their printing.
It's in print now.
There you go, yeah. We, no control.
Parents' fault.
Okay,
I move we adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.